Hi there, it's Alexandra from the Middlesized Garden YouTube channel and blog, and it's the November garden tour. And the November garden, I think, is really all about the trees. The Middlesized Garden is a town garden, and it is middle-sized. It's 100 feet long and 80 feet wide in its L shape, and then nearer the house it's 40 feet wide, and which is sort of feels like quite a big garden to some people and to me when I'm weeding it, but it is quite a small garden in terms of gardens, really, proper gardens. But I've got about 14 trees, and I'm really, really proud of that. I think they make so much difference to the garden. And it's in November that I really appreciate them, but also have to do some work to them. So I thought we'd focus the November garden tour really on the trees. The first thing is the heritage fruit trees. I've planted a crabapple and a quince, and they are so worthwhile. And no matter how small your garden is, I could really, really recommend a heritage fruit tree. The thing is about crab apples is that they have a beautiful blossom in the spring, and they're a lot earlier than a lot of the other blossom. And around me there are quite a few fruit farms, and they have apples and pears, and they actually plant crab apples every 20 trees or so to provide something for the bees to get before the apple blossom comes out. And they don't tend to harvest the crab apples commercially, so sometimes I go along and I pick the crab apples and I can make my own crab apple jelly, although I've also got my own tree. But sometimes I like to leave those crab apples on there because they look so gorgeous, right up until January for my crab apple tree, which is red sentinel, I think. And quince as well is an unusual and old-fashioned heritage tree. It has the most beautiful white blossom in spring, and then in the autumn it's got these rather quaint sort of fruits, and you can make a jelly out of them, or you can just put them in a bowl and they perfume the house in the most beautiful, delicate way. And of course a fruit tree will give you some privacy and some shade in the summer, and in the winter it doesn't block the light from your windows, so it's a fabulous tree generally. All the deciduous trees give us autumn colour, and they also, the time to prune them is in the winter. And the most beautiful tree in this garden is actually done very badly recently. It's a Cotinus Kagairia grace. It's a smoke bush that a lot of people grow as a shrub, and it's grown up into a tree here. And it's had another attack of verticillium wilt, which is a fungus, which actually just makes the leaves die off. Now, the standard advice for dealing with verticillium wilt is to chop down the tree, burn the leaves, dispose of everything, don't compost anything. But even the standard advice admits you can't get verticillium wilt out of the soil. So I've decided to accept that I've got it. There's some lovely, healthy new growth coming up from the base. So we've cut the tree back, probably by about 2/3, and we'll see if that new growth takes over. And of course it'll cause huge changes to this part of the garden, but perhaps that'll be exciting, although I do miss its gorgeous autumn colour. The other great trees for autumn colour are the liquid amber, which is these red trees, the silver birch, which is these lovely yellowing leaves, and also the frisia, Robinia frisia, which has a very yellow, fine, small yellow leaf, and it's drifting gently down over the lawn. We don't actually do very much about cleaning up the leaves on the lawn. We just run the mower across the lawn and it picks up most of the leaves, and that does help. And in the corners where there are a few more leaves, we do have to use leaf grabbers, but it's not a huge problem. And when the leaves settle in the beds, I just leave them there, but you do have to clear them away from something like alpines. Here there's a ground cover plant called Saxifrage London Pride, and it's very pretty, but the leaves of the magnolia, the evergreen magnolia above it, will completely stifle it and they will just rot away. So I do have to clear the leaves away from certain plants. One thing I really find important to do at this time of year is to cut the topiary into shape. It's very expensive to buy ready-made topiarised trees. It's like £1,000. But we bought these 2 home oaks for £50 each as young whips. They grew for about 2 years before we shaped them, and we then had about 3 to 5 years of shaping them, and they're now in an excellent shape. They only need cutting once a year, but we do employ an expert to do that. So when you're thinking about having topiarised trees, it's worth thinking, can you cut them? Are you expert enough? You could learn. But also there's a question of balancing on ladders with power tools and things. So that's obviously a cost that's involved, but it is only necessary once a year with home oaks, and I think they look lovely and smart. It's also a good time of year to thin out some of the deciduous shrubs, and this spirea has got really congested. I should have pruned it after it flowered in the spring. I didn't. I haven't actually touched it for a few years, and it has now got so congested. It's very old. I'm afraid we've done a big cutback. I don't know how it'll survive, and I'll let you know. But it may just regenerate, or this may be time to dig it up. But anyway, we've given it a really good thinning out and trying to restore the shape. And of course, if you've got grasses in November, that is just fabulous. And I love these grasses in pots. It's Panicum virgatum shenandoah. And also I'm particularly interested that a little spider has taken the grass seeds and it's taken one of the blossoms from the cotinus, which were floating around in the garden about a month or so ago. And it's used these to make its web. It's a very clever spider, slightly lazy spider, I think. And speaking of spiders, now is of course the time to start supporting wildlife in the garden. When we moved in here 16 years ago, our predecessors told us that they regularly fed the birds, and they gave us some bird feed and they left the bird feeders, and so we kept going. And we have so many sparrows, you could drive yourself mad trying to count how many sparrows are in this film. But sparrows have really declined in the UK generally. They were our most common bird. We've been here 16 years and we've supported the bird life through feeding them and also through having hedges and both deciduous and evergreen shrubs and trees. So there's lots of shelter. So I think that shows how much loss of habitat has affected the bird life in the UK, because other issues such as disease or predators would have affected our sparrows as much as they've affected sparrows generally. These sparrows have had 40 years of regular feeding and maintaining in habitat, and they are fantastically abundant. It also shows that just one garden can make a difference. So it's really worth thinking about food and shelter for your birds and wildlife in your garden. We're just hitting some colder weather, and I think the last of the leaves are coming down. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and if so, please hit like, because then I'll know you'd like more garden tours. And if you'd like more tips, ideas and inspiration for your middle-sized garden, do subscribe to the Middlesized Garden YouTube channel. And thank you for watching. Goodbye.